All right. Well, here's the they asked the questions for the some of the top restorers we have here at the Nationals, and we had a winner from the Twitter contest. This is Byron Sperling from Kindersley, Saskatchewan, Canada. His question was, at what point do you decide a scout tub is too rusty to fix? I think a lot of us have asked this question. Is there an area of the tub that is a death sentence? Is there a problem area that is too much to overcome? And that was really Heather's question. So I don't know who wants to start with that one.
I'd say it varies from East Coast to West Coast, because what we call junk on the West Coast, the East Coast call gold. So I usually, if it's getting into the door jamb supports really heavy on the rust, the firewall, the tunnel area, that's getting pretty much time to probably consider replacing the tub. Because it's just the amount of time you're going to put into it versus what it would cost us to get a decent replacement starts to get a little bit unequal in that area. And so, you know, it gets to a certain point, rebuilding a tub gets cost prohibitive.
Yeah, the amount of hours that you end up trying to piece one back together outweighs just finding another tub. It's simple economics.
Yeah.
What they said. But we have the disadvantage of geographical location, because we'll pay $1,500 to ship a tub from him to us. So I guess we probably deal with it a little bit more than obviously than what you guys do, maybe even what you guys do too. But we run into also a lot of sentimental value. I want my Scout. I don't want a Scout, I want my Scout. And we've spent an insane amount of money fixing your Scout for you before, because it's your Scout. So it varies from project to project because of that too.
I don't know where you guys are. I know you're West Coast. Where are you guys from?
We're in Virginia.
I'm in Springfield right here.
So we're
Real fast, you know what, before I answer that question, everybody want to say who they're from real fast and just introduce yourself?
I'm Jeff Ismail, IH Parts America.
Mike Moore with Scout Co. in Virginia.
Tony Clark with Silverback Custom Works, right here now.
What was the offer?
Silverback Custom Works.
All right, who's got questions? Restoration questions?
This is really basic, but we have what's titled as a 65 pickup, and it's obviously a C-Series, built in June of 64, sold in October of 64. Everything on it matches the C-Series, but if you say to someone it's a 65, they also, you have D-Series. Should we just call it a 64 when we're, I mean, it's titled a 65,
So
but...
I kind of call 61 to 68 all C series, because they kind of went through the alphabet through those whole years, and A, B, C, D, you know, and they just kind of repeated themselves. I don't know, I always call them a C series because the 59 to 61 was a B, so but I know that they jump around, and to me they're technically all the same. 61 to 68, I mean, minor variations, they're, so you can call it an A, and B, C, D, whatever the designation happened to be, but you know, no one's right or wrong when it comes down to that. So it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
You know, it's the parts aren't going to be any different, because
that's what
one
we
says
were
a C
worried
or a
about,
D.
yeah.
The 1 year difference doesn't. In that area, it doesn't.
And my second question is, the gas tank. It obviously wasn't built for unleaded gas, and I'm sure there's a little bit of old gas in there. Should you just run that out, or should we replace the gas tank? Because
No need to replace it if it's still in good shape. Just
Okay.
have it. A lot of what we do is we take our fuel tanks to a radiator shop, and they'll boil them out.
okay.
And then if the insides, if the coating's gone or something, then they charge a little extra and they'll recoat the inside of the tank.
Oh, okay.
It's ready to go again, ready for another lifetime of service.
Okay, thanks.
On an enclosed section of your Scout, between the inner and outer rocker panels. As an example, the center body mount, the small enclosed tubes on that. What do each of you do to keep the rust monster away from something like that after you've rebuilt the truck?
What we do is drill a small hole and then we have a wand where we can inject into those hollow cavities. We have a wand basically that fans out, sits in, and then you feed it into that cavity, pull it back out as it's spraying, it will coat the entire inside of that cavity, and then seal that hole back up.
Eastwood makes an aerosol product, internal frame coating.
Okay.
It's a zinc-rich primer that's made to do, and it comes with a little flexible, I guess is what you're talking about on the scroll. It's about that long. And it's got a conical brass machine end on it that sprays out in a pattern that you can pull through, like what he's saying. I think we just got one a couple weeks ago. I think it's Transtar brand, but I'm not sure. But they've got their straw's about this long, and it's a little bit bigger diameter, and it works. It fans out a little better. But
I've used the Eastwood product on.
Yeah,
My recommendation is, just don't do any final painting, because it you know, like if you're doing a frame especially, it just starts running out everywhere when you get it done. So you want to do your coating on the insides first, and then do all your outside external coating.
and it'll soften whatever paint's on there too. So like if you paint your frame and then pull this thing through where it runs across, it makes the paint soft. These are the lessons we learned the hard way.
These hard lessons are the best,
Right.
those are the ones you remember.
And they used to only have snot green color, and it really looked bad when it runs out all over everything. They've got black now, so it's what it is.
Not that hateful.
So I've got a 71 Scout 2 that I'm taking down to the frame and building back up. And so I've had it for 25 years, and there's so many upgrades available. You know, it's got 4 drum brakes, so there's disc brake upgrades and fuel injection. And in your opinion, I mean, I want to be able to drive it. Like, we live in Missouri, so I like to drive it from there to here, you know, and drive it around. Not so much to restore 100%, you know, for show. Is there anything that you would say, man, if you're doing that, I would really do this, but everything else is so-so, you know? Because I'm gonna have one chance to do this, right? I'm gonna take it down, I'm gonna bring it back up. So while I'm doing it, and I have to like put a lot of money into the brake system anyway, would you go with disc, or any opinions on that?
Well, whenever you're doing a build-up, you have that opportunity to do some modernization. And start with the safety items, which brakes and steering are a safety item. So with the brakes, I mean, if you're already gonna have to rebuild everything, sometimes it's only just a few $100s more just to go to the disc brakes and then be able to stop a lot better and not have the wheel pulling left or right if your front drum brakes aren't adjusted correctly. Whether you need to go 4-wheel disc, that's up in the air. I mean, if the guys that have from like 74 to 80 have 11 by 2 1/4 brakes. Brake drums on those are ridiculously expensive. By the time you do a couple drums, wheel cylinders, the shoes, the hardware, you're over $500, and it's like I said, you're just a couple $100s away from going disc after that. So cost can be a factor on it as well. And then with steering, you know, it's again, if it's a power steering your Scout. Yeah. So make sure you have a good rag joint, or a lot of guys do what's called the Borgeson conversion on that.
Okay. And the electrical, as far as the fuse box, and I mean, you can get upgrades for all that as well, I guess. I mean, that would be probably the next thing that I would think.
Yeah, the internet, the Scouts are pretty notorious for having bad firewall connectors.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about doing the whole new wiring harness anyway, and then, you know, upgrading the fuse box and things like
We
that.
sell a lot of aftermarket wiring kits. You can buy OEM replacement from one of the light line dealers that are more or less plug and play. But majority of the time, I mean, guys are doing, you know, like the painless wiring kit. We don't sell painless with a similar brand, but it goes from end to end, you know.
Yeah.
Especially if you're gonna drive it, we recommend you rewire. If you're all the wiring in there is 40 years old or more, who knows how many previous owners have been in there,
Well, I know.
been in there with
Yeah.
whatever kind of tools they may have.
I know.
But
So, that's good. Thanks. Yep. I mean, the clue to start with safety first. That makes a lot of sense.
That's what we always tell guys. You guys, you know, they pull one out, it's been in the barn forever, how many years, and You know, they get it running, and it's like, okay, you got it running. I go, now the first thing to start toying with is the steering and the brakes, because it doesn't matter how fast you go if you can't steer and stop.
I mean, we drove I-70 here from Missouri yesterday, and brakes came in really handy. So getting it to go is a really good idea, but getting it to stop is pretty darn important.
Yeah, safety items first.
Speaking of safety, they weren't made with, back then when our truck was, they didn't have seat belts. And of course that ruins my truck. And should you just put them in, or does it vary by state? Like what the law is based on the age of your vehicle?
I know from where I'm from in California, if the vehicle didn't come with it, then you don't have to have it. But if it came with seat belts and you're not wearing it, then they take it to you. Otherwise, I mean, we sell like just universal stock replacement lap belts that you can install.
Again, just tuck them in there.
Yeah, you can just shove it. If you don't want them to be seen while you're showing the vehicle, because they're kind of a new modern thing, you just shove them between the seat cushions where no one can see them. But you definitely want new seat belts, because even if you find some old seat belts 40, 50 years old, you know, how good's the stitching on them and the webbing? You know, your life's depending on that belt holding in.
It's kind of scary to see all of the bidding wars on them online, the old ones.
Right.
What about reinforcing the floor plans when you're putting them in? You want to
That too.
definitely put a spreader washer or something on
Yeah,
there, right?
if the floors are compromised in any which way, seat belts are only as good as what they're mounted to.
Yep. Going over, help I can get.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned at Borgeson, I have a 77 Scout too, and I did it. But now the pump noise telegraphs through.
What you want to do is loosen the set screws on it and turn the wheel kind of both left and right, and then lock it back down and see. Sometimes if they get installed, they're in a little bit of a bind.
Oh, okay.
So that's all it takes. It just, you know, I've had to actually sometimes loosen the steering column, maybe tug up on the column if it's too tight together. I've seen that happen. If your steering box has a nipple sticking off the front of it, and if you don't trim that off, you need to trim that little nipple off the front there for the Borgeson to fully see. My Scout's got the, you know, the regular Borgeson joint. Occasionally, you know, you hear it vibrate through, but not all the time.
Just when you go to extremes, I think I hear, you know, when you turn it all one way or the other, I hear it more than just right.
Yeah. 'Cause when you're driving straight, it's not working the pump at all. So only when you're turning, you hear a little the growl coming up through
Exactly.
it. Yeah. And that's why the Borgeson also offers what's called a vibration joint. They have a rubber dampened one, which helps. I don't think that's still better than a rag joint. I mean, the rag joint's going to really absorb the most vibration and transmit the least amount of noise up through the column. But that is the downside of installing the Borgeson, is you can run into some noise vibration.
The reason I did it is I had so much wandering, continuously correcting. And I saw, I think your article on rotating.
Yeah.
Talk about that. What were you?
For like caster angles and such?
Yeah.
So the Scouts from the factory, with the exception of 1980, came with 0 degrees casting. That means the ball joints are sitting directly one above the other. The wheels are kind of free to turn. They're not tracking well. They don't know which kind of, that's why those Scouts are kind of known to wander a little bit. So when you add a little bit of caster to it, it helps the tires track a lot better. That's why we'll do that. But with the Scouts, you can't get away with too much, because then your pinion starts pointing down in the dirt, and then you start running the driveline problems. So ideally, the best solution is a cut and turn. And that's where they cut the C's off into the axle tubes, rotate them back, and then rebuild them.
4 degrees, how far do you go?
I like to go no more than 5. On average, 4 degrees, and we will put a little bit more on the passenger side than the driver's side. Like if we do the driver at 4, we'll do the passenger at like 4.3 degrees. It's called a caster split. That caster split with a typical road crown will keep the vehicle driving straight. If you have equal caster and you have a crowned road, the vehicle's going to want to drive up the, you know, it's going to want to keep going to the left up the crown of the road. So that's why you put just a little bit more caster on one side. It'll keep it driving straight, and the caster is a non-tire wearing angle unless you go too extreme on it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Best way I like to describe that to people is, you know, you can't, you know, tilting back and forth as if you're you're basically standing on your flat feet at 0, and then a lot of guys will put the extended shackles in there, well, then you pushed it forward, so you're basically standing on your toes. How stable are you standing on your toes? And if you put the caster on there, you add the negative Casper back in it, you're putting your weight back on your heels. So that kind of, it's the way I've always described it, how when you set that caster, I've got like 3 degrees, and mine's 4-wheel drive, and my wife's is 2-wheel drive. So when I did hers, I put 6 in her 2-wheel drive, and you can take it down the road and just 70 mile an hour down the interstate and just let it go, and it'll just track just straight as it can be.
My son's got a 70, and it's got a 2-wheel drive, solid axle. And I got wedges, 4-degree wedges. Is that going to help that?
Yeah, I'll add 4 degrees to it right away, just if you have no shaft in it. So with the stock suspension under it, it's going to be at 0 degrees, and by putting the 4-degree shim in there, and a lot of guys make the mistake of putting that shim in backwards. So if you're stock, you're spring under axle, you put the fat side in the front, narrow side at the back. You get a lot of guys we'll sell them with the lift kit with the intention of increasing the caster angle. And what they do is they put the fat side forward to get the driveline angle good. And they're like, oh, I put those shims in you sold me, and the thing, I can't even drive it. It's all over the road. And our first question is, which way did you install the shim? Well, I did it that way for the driveline. Well, you just went negative on it. So.
And when you put the shims in there, those little holes or nubs, that is enough to hold them?
We sell the steel version, which you replace the center pin at the same time. They get bolted to the leaf pack, so you don't have that problem. And you definitely want to stay away from aluminum shims, because those are notorious after a little bit of age they settle in, so the U-bolts keep loosening up, and then they're prone to cracking. And they're not very good because they're sitting over the little top of the center pin, and the center pin's barely sticking up. The axle does not have a solid way of locating itself on the spring.
Okay, I was going to ask you something else. Oh, the axle for the 2-wheel drive U-bolts, they're like squared off. Where do I get those? You have them, or?
Most spring shops could just make them for you on the fly. If you go to a lot of auto parts stores, they'll just have a catalog with different U-bolt sizes, and a lot of auto parts stores. Auto parts store ones usually aren't as strong. Spring shop's usually your best bet. They're going to have the strongest ones.
Find a big truck dealership
Yeah,
too. And
get
if you
it-
ask
get
them,
it-
hey,
get
where
it.
does your U-bolts, they'll be able to tell you.
Yeah, get at least
Somebody semi-local to you.
get at least a grade 5 or a grade 8. A lot of those that you get at Tractor Supply are like hardware grade.
Like a
And
grade 2. And
yeah, they're not much, but you can get at least a grade 5. If you can't find a grade 8, get a grade 5.
Jeff touched on it before, European 2-wheel drive is not a problem, but the more you start to twist that axle back to help your alignment spec, the more your pinion is pointing down. And that's where the cut and turn comes in. If you go, you can look at it and say, great, it's going to track better, and the next thing you know, you've got binding in the drive shaft. And that's where the cut and turn comes in, where you actually twisting the outer part of the axle and leaving the center part of it be, so your drive line angle's right. But like I said, 2-wheel drive, you don't have to worry about it.
I haven't done it yet. I plan to. A little protractor, magnetic protractor. Where do you put that when you're doing that? You take the guts out and put it right on the bolted flat plate there and use that, or?
On, like when we're turning C's, for instance.
Yeah.
So if the axle's all stripped down, normally, if you got the C like this, there's a nice flat spot right on top to set your angle
okay.
finder on.
Okay.
Make sure your vehicle's leveled off and all that, because if your vehicle's not level, your measurements are not going to be accurate.
Once you got the ball joints out, you can see where it's machine flat, where he's talking about.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
On the Scout 2s, what you guys do to keep the leaves out of the bottom corners right in front of the doors to stop them from rusting out the front fenders.
Did you just say Scout 2, stop, and rust all in the same sentence?
I know I'm dreaming, okay, I know it's a tight dream, but still,
We run that internal frame coating up inside of the B-pillars.
Okay.
And
Or
then,
fiberglass stuff, and solve all that rough problem.
but we do that, and then when you got your front clip off, you can get in there and see all the seams, and do seam sealer in there before you paint.
I
If
also
you don't
took one
mind
of
some
those.
zip ties, I mean, you can always get it, take the cowl off from underneath the hood there and slip a screen underneath and just zip tie it up to keep a lot of the larger debris out of that. But ultimately, the only other way is to take the vent out from the inside kick panel, get a vacuum in there and suck the leaves out. Or if you take the cowl out from under the hood, raise your hood, take the cowl out, and you get your long shop vac to shove the hose down in there, and you'll get most of the leaves sucked out. But I've seen where they're so packed, I mean, even
Oh, yeah.
the vacuum won't get them out, a hose won't hose them out.
One of the things
Yeah.
I did, Jeff, was when I had the fenders off, the outer fenders off, I took one of those leaf guards from your gutters. They're exact width. You just bend the tab on or flange on it, put them in there and rivet them. That'll keep the big stuff from dropping in.
Yeah.
Then we pour 15 to everything on the inside.
That's key to keeping those things from rusting, because that's what
And I took
traps
mine
the
out.
water in and starts them
I had
rusting.
a wild animal femur or something. I found bones and acorns and everything down there, man. It's some pretty scary stuff. I exercised it, but it's neat.
Yeah.
Got a question like on the, I've got a 1310 pickup, and this is like, it's only like 9,000 miles on it, so it's a pretty good life. But I've got a couple others in that same body style, and the windshield frames, you know, down on the, where the seam's at, is notorious for, I mean, what's the best, just clean those up and weld them back shut, or is there a way to prevent that from wanting to rust out or seeping in and getting the rot right there?
No, I don't know. I'll tell you, the one thing I can think of what causes them to rust there is the fact that they're probably not coated on the inside. So it gets back to getting some type of primer, you know, open them up, get your primer coating all up in there and patch it back up and off it goes.
We've got one at the shop now that came from California. Sorry, I stole one of your good ones. We've got one there now, and he's exactly right. There's nothing there where the roof comes up on top of the windshield and wraps down and the spot welded in. Underneath that, there's I guess another piece that's actually part of the windshield frame, and where it wraps inside, there's nothing anywhere. But this one has no rust in it, but it's just bare metal. They didn't do anything to it at all. So what we did on that one was drilled small holes up in there and pulled that internal coating through it, pray and hope for the best.
Now, what do you do on the top of those B pillars?
What are we doing? What now?
Top of the B pillars, when you always got that little gap there when the rail starts going toward the back.
On the where now?
Top of your B back of the door.
Right. B pillar. Okay.
That B pillar on the top, there's always an open gap on both my
On
scouts.
Scout 2
Yeah.
to do what with fill it in?
Yeah. What do? You guys just
Right underneath the weather stripping.
Yeah.
We would spray that stuff in there and then
No, I mean, well, up on the top, I've got an open joint at the top of the B pillar. Where it
You mean
goes
like
in.
where your two weather strips come in?
Yes.
Okay, normally what we do is cut a 45 and a 45, get as tight as you can, and then you get rubber adhesive, weather strip adhesive.
Yeah.
Put a nice little bead of rubber strip adhesive, piece of tape, shut the door, come back in the morning, peel the tape off, it'll bond it together and
we've taken vacuum hose and put a small piece of vacuum hose inside of the bulb too where they meet.
Oh.
And
Keep it like flush out,
to keep
yeah.
it lined up with each other, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can get the 45-degree cut right, that's the best way to do it.
Thank you.
How about adapting modern inner fender plastic liners to Scout? Is there any ones that kind of almost fit?
boy, not that I know of. I think the best thing to do is, some flat rubber sheeting, drill some holes and just hang it up from in there.
That would definitely be a trial and error thing.
Should
Just
help
have to get on it.
though, for a daily drive.
Sure. You had a question there?
What's been your biggest challenge with being on swaps on the Scout team? Besides the very list.
Come on, you're the LS expert.
The main advantage?
No. I got the advantage, but the challenge in the actual swap. What did you run into problem-wise? The biggest, oh, I didn't see that.
The challenge has been defeated. It's easy. It ends up being just, is it worth it financially? Is the biggest, I guess for us to sell that swap, we've swapped several of them. We make mounts now that weld in off of a jig setup that just drops on and welds in, and it'll position it to where it fits. I mean, to get one in, we pulled a Scout in at 9 o'clock, I think, in the morning one day, and before we went to lunch, the LS was in it. We drove it in the shop with the V8, the International V8, pulled it, had it on the floor, and had the LS hanging there and went to lunch. So as far as to physically make it fit, it's not a problem. And we've got a spreadsheet that I've got online on Google that has got every part, every component that we've used on it, from making your stock gauges work and everything else is all listed. So as far as the, I guess the brainstorming part of it and figuring out how to do it, we figured it out, but I mean,
So you got the bracket for the 4L60 and the MT241, the transfer case and everything?
we use a 4L60 and then we use a Jeep Dana 300 for a transfer case. Well, nobody threw anything. The reason being is because I've actually got a 241 in the Scout that I drive every day for a transfer case, but it's a bigger, just the shell is, the case is bigger. And it makes it all but impossible to run the right exhaust pipe between the transfer case and the frame rail. So you've got to come down off the manifold and then cross over and run them both on the driver's side, and then go back over again and back for your dual exhaust. And it just makes it kind of a mess to do it. But the Jeep 300 is a whole lot smaller package. Everything fits. The advanced adapter that runs between the two has got provisions in it for the vehicle speed sensor that your computer needs to shift gears for the 4L60. But the Jeep 300 also has the cable-driven speedometer output, so if you want to keep your stock gauges, you can still run your stock speedometer through the cable and then use the electronic VSS to run the computer to tell it to shift, so everything just works. But that's the best way we found to do them. We've done two, counting the one I drive, we've done two with an MP241, but I don't recommend it. If anybody wants to know what we do, I tell them 300.
Gas mileage, or mileage, pretty much. Is that
It depends on the engine. 6 liters get really cruddy fuel mileage.
5.3?
The 5.3, we built one that we've got some pictures of over here in our booth that we just, I drove it to Charlotte and got 22 and a half out of one tank, but I was running mid to high 70s with cruise, AC, just riding, and got 22 and a half, but about 19 or 20 is probably right. Now what now?
How tall were the tires?
Those were 307s and 235. Yeah, just stock 235, 29 inch or whatever they end up being tires.
Thank you.
And then we've got one that we did for a customer sometime in the last 6-8 months that he's got 373s and 33 1250 mud terrain tires. He drives his in town and gets 15, 16 in town. So, yep.
Kind of went to that purist question. So this 1310 I got, it spent its entire life in the cemetery, which is the grave digger truck basically. Wasn't licensed until I think 2009 when I got it. So it's, and like I say, it's under 9,000 miles. It's cab, it's cab chassis, 1310, ordered extra heavy, and I've got all the build sheets that was ordered with, dump bed. But I've also got two other trucks where I've got a 392 with air conditioning and all that good stuff and a nice bed. So my limit becomes to leave a nice stock original truck as it was with no rust and, fully functioning dump bed, all that fun stuff on it, or do I start mixing parts up and putting regular step and regular up, complete side bed on it and 392 with air conditioning and be my 4-speed. So I get mixed on that. Once I start the West Coast and buy another to drive is my pickup with fleet side and leave my nice original super heavy 1-ton alone. Just an opinion question, really.
Pretty much. To me, it would be, I'm gonna leave that up to whoever it is that's doing it. That's like your call.
Kind of like to each his own, and
Yeah.
it's your vehicle, do what you want to do with it. Sure, sometimes as a purist, we may not agree with it. He's not a purist, but it really depends on the vehicle. Like I hate seeing a really nice Survivor is what we call them, something that's made its whole life, all the way up till now, and it's still original. Hate seeing those get modified too much, but hey, somebody owns it, it's their money, it's their vehicle. Do what makes you happy.
It's been a toss-up. I've had it for several years. I love it. Everybody loves to see it out and about, but I also have a nice pickup truck to use some too.
That's why you need 2. or 3, or 5.
I got 3 already.
They're known to breed in your backyard, you just don't know it.
They rust and breed.
Yes, sir.
Got a 1210 pickup. 73. If you drive it over 2 or 3 days, the brakes work fine. If you let it sit for like 3 weeks, then you get in, you touch the brake and about throw you through the windshield. And I've been told that they get a light rust coating on. I live in Indiana, Midwest, humid. Does that sound right, or I got a brake problem?
I would say it sounds right unless you've got the wrong composition of the brake linings. You know, I mean, brake linings come in all sorts of compositions, and if you got one that's really soft, that's really grabby, and sure, after a few weeks, I could see the inside of a brake drum flash rusting a little bit, being a little grabby until you get them cleaned off again.
You just hold your toe on the pedal and then drive real slow,
Clean
it'll
them
clean
off.
itself up in a quarter of a mile or less. It just seems weird that it keeps happening,
Yeah, I would say that's probably a humidity thing, but I guess the biggest test would be after waiting a few weeks, take a tire and pull a drum off and see if it is flash rusting in there, and I think that would pretty much answer the question on that of what's causing that. Whether to change the brake composition linings, at a brake shop, then it's worth it. It's hard to say. Hard to say. Don't want to make it to where it can't stop.
Along those lines, the wheel cylinders. Mine, I have a 73 also, and if I let it sit like over the winter, and I drive it, boy, you step on it, it starts pulling one way or the other, and I put brand new wheel cylinders in there. Someone told me that, I don't know, international exclusively, they had problems doing that, so they have them lined stainless steel. Sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the wheel cylinders, the cylinders inside getting stuck in there, but if they're new wheel cylinders, you got clean fluid, and if it's dark left and right, potentially maybe you have the same problems as gentlemen, where it might be flash rusting a little bit, or the brakes just aren't adjusted evenly.
Does it clear itself up after driving it a while?
Yeah, it gets somewhat better, but boy, it's, like he said, it's bad when you first start.
Right.
Did you replace the brake hoses?
Yeah, oh yeah, everything.
Okay.
And along those lines,